Hello everyone, I'm here with Ryan Gittleson, the co-founder of Virtue Poker. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm also great. So Ryan, you're the co-founder of a decentralized platform for playing poker online using the Ethereum blockchain. Maybe we can start by you telling us about yourself and about the team behind Virtue Poker.
Yeah, sure. So we were actually internally incubated by ConsenSys. ConsenSys was founded by a man named Joe Lubin, who helped co-found Ethereum back in 2014. He started ConsenSys as a for-profit venture, incubating different projects that were building decentralized applications on top of Ethereum. So that's where we were born. We began building Virtue Poker in May of 2015. Initially, for a decent amount of time, it was myself doing most of the business development, business model formulation, and strategy, along with my co-partner, Jim Barry, who his background is 30-year software developer, former NASA engineer. He was the one who architected the app and built out the initial prototype. Beginning in about June of this year, after we essentially completed our incubation, we began scaling our team. So around myself and Jim, we've hired a lot of people who had development experience in the online gaming arena. So our head of product, Jose Luis Diaz, former software engineer turned product manager. He worked at a company called Adobo, along with another one of our developers named Javier Franco Algarada. And they built a online gambling platform out of Gibraltar, and have joined our team to help scale our platform. Outside of that, another team member is a man named Eamon McNamee. He was a former software developer for PokerStars, so he has a lot of insight, and also a former poker player, professional poker player. So he's helping us both on our back-end development as well as helping us with our product formulation with regards to user experience from his background. And then around that, we also consulted our game security consultant named Peter Marr. He has worked with clients like Full Tilt and a lot of the other large gaming companies in their fraud department. He's helping us stand up our security operation to ensure that the games are safe on our platform. And then around that, we have an advisory board, including Joe Lubin and a man named Robert Davidman, who he was part of the initial team that created Party Poker. He is the marketing agency here in New York. He's helping us formulate our go-to-market strategy in terms of how we get brand awareness and acquire customers. And then some of the more key names. So we've secured relationships with 3 of the top 10 all-time live earning poker pros. So initially we brought on Dan Coleman and Brian Rast. Dan has over $28 million in career earnings, Brian over $20 million in earnings. They're helping us, as well as Phil Ivey, who I think a lot of people know, 10-time World Series poker bracelet winner. They're helping us both from a brand awareness perspective as well as a product development perspective, helping us give feedback in terms of how we build the final product. So we're really excited about our core team and are looking to build around them.
Okay, sounds good. So initially, like from the beginning of the project, you were actually incubated into ConsenSys?
Yep, I'm actually sitting in ConsenSys' office right now.
So all the team is from ConsenSys.
Yeah, so we are actually a largely distributed team. I'm actually the only one based in New York. Jim's based in New Hampshire. Peter's based in Panama. We have 3 developers in Spain, 1 in Ireland. So kind of, we're both a decentralized team building a decentralized application.
Nice. Okay, can you tell us what brought you to found Virtual Poker? Where did you get the idea of it?
Sure. So, I mean, what we were looking for at ConsenSys were what are industries where the core utilities of a blockchain, specifically the Ethereum blockchain, could add value. And we saw poker a perfect use case. So part of the reasoning behind that was, it's a very scandal-ridden industry. First and foremost, the lack of protection of player funds, as was very transparent with the full tilt scandal from the rise of Black Friday, where it was discovered that there was greater than $100 million worth of player shortfall. Essentially, Full Tilt was taking player deposits and using it for operational expenses and marketing, operating a pseudo Ponzi scheme. Another instance was Lock Poker, where it was discovered after a year of not processing payouts for players that the founder of Lock Poker was using player deposits as personal spending money. So this particular problem, the misuse of player deposits, is easily solved by a combination of user-owned digital wallets and Ethereum smart contracts. And then in tandem with that, this is actually fully off-chain, is the idea of the fairness of the gameplay. Is the shuffle random? Can you trust the site with your cards? What happened in Absolute Poker and Ultimate Bet, it was discovered a company insider had access to an administrative account that allowed that person, along with their co-conspirators, to view all the private cards of players on the platform. So they made off with over $20 million over the course of their two-year scam. So we use an off-chain peer-to-peer shuffling protocol called Mental Poker to address that, where all players are involved in card shuffling. So instead of a random number generator being located in some offshore server that's not very transparent, on Virtue Poker, you could think of an RNG as built into every single client, and every player shuffles the deck for each hand played on Virtue Poker. So the combination of this off-chain peer-to-peer game engine in tandem with on-chain smart contracts is the architecture of Virtue Poker, and the reason we thought that this solution could add significant value, given we're addressing very pertinent issues in online poker.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like all the problems you've mentioned. Sounds like your main value proposition is the safety of the funds and the decentralization and also the safety of the cards.
The safety of player funds and the fairness of the game is our two core value propositions.
Yeah, nice. Okay, you started to go a little bit deep into your future platform. Maybe you can explain our audience like an example of a poker game that will be hosted on your platform. How will that?
Sure. So, I mean, we actually have spent the last 2 years building out our MVP. So we have a demo right now. We have a couple demos on YouTube. But in terms of like the interaction of how it looks and how a player would interact with the app, the user downloads the client to their machine. They generate an account. In the final platform, we'll leverage another ConsenSys product called Uport that verifies your ID and stores that in a player registry. And then we pair that with a player account address in the Virtue Poker client, which includes your wallet. You can fund that wallet and then select from all available game types the game that you wish to play. And the way you join that game is sending the buy-in amount to the table address or smart contract. Once those funds have been sent to the contract, you're entered into the game along with other players, and then it goes through this mental poker process where the deck is generated, it is encrypted, it's shuffled, it's passed around, and then gameplay occurs. At the end of the hand, let's say I lose 50 chips to you. That result is sent to the smart contract, which updates the chip counter in the contract so the table contract can know what's going on at the game level, and players move on to the next hand. So it's actually asynchronous. This is how we improve our gameplay speed is as players send that transaction to the contract, players move on to the next hand while it's being verified. And then at the end of a game, let's say you wish to leave the table and you click leave table, the contract auto executes and pays you back the funds owed back to your wallet address. So that's the very simple low-level way that a game will work on Virtue Poker, and that currently works in our app.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned before the shuffling ability that you will use a mental poker algorithm. How will that work? Like each player will have to physically shuffle the cards, or is it automatically shuffled by everyone?
Yeah, so I mean, while the process sounds complicated, this all goes on in the background in the client. It looks and feels like a normal game of poker. Mm-hmm. So your client is automatically going through this process along with the other peers at the table. What's going on is all of the players are forming a peer-to-peer subnet and constantly communicating and synchronizing with each other instead of having to communicate with a server.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And what of the solution of the backend is on the Ethereum blockchain, and what is off-chain? what parts of the game will need a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain, as we know that the scalability issue and the fees paid is a big issue.
Yeah, for sure. So all gameplay is done off chain. The only times right now that we interact with Ethereum and send a transaction to Ethereum is when a player joins a table at the end of each hand and when a player leaves the table. And we're looking to optimize the app to remove the requirement of sending a transaction at the end of each hand to optimize our gas costs. So it would only be when you join a table and when you leave a table, essentially when reconciliation needs to occur.
Okay, nice. Okay, let's talk about. I mean, you're a startup, and the big issue of a startup is to attract user base. There are big players in the poker industry. You mentioned PokerStars with around 50% of the regulated online traffic. How are you going to attract a big user base to your platform?
Yeah, for sure. So part of the reasoning behind doing our token sale is we plan to not only use the funds to build out the fully functional platform, but also use the bulk share of that to acquire players via a series of large guaranteed tournaments and free rolls as a kickoff series. So the idea behind that is even people who might not have heard of us or know exactly how we work. If you put up a large enough, if we put up enough prize money to really excite people, so for example, a $5 million or $10 million guaranteed tournament, and then you publicize that event to a lot of the poker outlets who we have very good relationships to, that'll incentivize people to not only download the client, but look into how we work. And we plan on conducting, as we've been doing for the last few months, a series of posts illustrating our core value propositions and our utility and how we work. And then it becomes a retention problem. So once we acquire people, how do we make sure that they continue playing on our platform? So that goes to the importance of the usability of the software. It needs to be really easy to use and fun to play on, which we are currently going through a remake of our front end. And in terms of how we continue to retain players as well, I think poker has been misguided in how sites have used rakeback. Rakeback in the past has been used to incentivize high volume play. So you're rewarding winning players who take money from the site, making it harder to continue to have a stable platform because you have to acquire a lot more recreational players. So for us, we're exploring using rakeback to incentivize losing players or more recreational players to help them continue to play on the platform and learn the game and compete against more seasoned players. That, as well as having a lower rake structure than one that's currently offered, we feel will give us a good chance of success in the industry.
Okay. And will your platform take also fiat currencies or only cryptocurrencies?
Initially, our platform is going to only be crypto based, so you can access games using our token or Ether. And while we understand that there's an extra step that people will need to take in using our platform, it actually is becoming more and more commonplace that a lot of poker players are crypto enthusiasts. There's a very big overlap in the two communities. You can go on 2+2, the world's largest poker forum, and one of the most popular threads is cryptocurrency or Bitcoin for online poker. So we feel that the overlap is only going to continue to grow and make it easier for poker players to access our platform.
Okay, great. Okay, let's talk a bit about VPP or native token. What will be its use in the platform?
Sure. So our token, from the player perspective, can be used as chips to play and wager in games. It can be used as a tournament ticket to access these special tournaments I mentioned, like free rolls and guaranteed tournaments. And then it can also be earned as rakeback, so to reward our most loyal players. Then the other use is completely separate, is from the perspective of justice. So it'll help if I kind of explain what a justice is first. So part of the limitations of mental poker and being peer-to-peer is first, it's the drop player problem. So in order to reveal community cards, all players need to share an encryption key. If a player drops out, say their internet connection goes out before a hand's completed, the hand's canceled. And then the other drawback is because we're fully peer-to-peer, you could think of the data on each table, the game log data, as siloed, which makes it really tough to do anti-cheating provisions such as collusion detection, bot detection, and multi-account prevention. What we're using the justice for is two things. First, they hold a partial subset of encryption keys so that if a player drops out, they can share the missing keys so that the hand can continue. And then second, they're constantly logging all game level data and submitting it initially to us for storage. So the centralized component of Virtue Poker is with regards to game security. So we're going to own that database that ties back all hand histories back to a unique player ID using UPort, and then run algorithms across that data to detect patterns of irregularity. And that enables us to punish players if they're caught colluding or using bots. And we felt that trade-off of full decentralization versus this partial use of centralization would be attractive to players, because players want to know that someone is out there making sure that they're not being cheated against. So the justices are assigned to tables on a per hand basis and is based upon a staking mechanism where the amount of, in order to become a justice, you need to download the justice software, you need to acquire VPP, you stake it in a contract, and your assignment percentage is based upon the amount that you stake or the total amount staked in that contract. And in return for providing the service, justices earn fees. So the rake, the revenue of the platform, the bulk share goes to those who stand up these justice nodes. So you can think of a high level a justice as analogous to a miner. Instead of verifying transactions on Ethereum, they're verifying and submitting for storage hands on Virtue Poker.
So can you elaborate a little more? What exactly do they validate those nodes?
Sure. So at the end of each hand, all players and the justice cryptographically sign off on the end result of the hand and then submit it both for storage and submit the result to the contract to update the chip counter. So that's the use of the justice. If a player drops out, the justice can share the missing keys so that the hand can continue. And then the idea of the staking mechanism is to incentivize justices to be honest, because if they're caught misreporting a hand result or not signing off on a result for no reason, they forfeit their stake plus any fees accrued in that contract. And I should mention that this is an automated process. It's not a human looking at a particular hand. Yeah, that's how the justice system works.
And will they get all the fees from the platform, or who will get? I mean, the fees for the Ethereum blockchain, fees for the justice mechanism, and so these are all the fees in the platform.
So yeah, the only fees on the platform are the fees that you pay to the justices. We will most likely take a commission on all justice fees so that we as a company can have some revenue generation. We're finalizing the exact fee structure as we get closer to being able to estimate our gas costs so we know what our operational costs are.
Nice. Okay, can anyone be a justice node in your platform?
Yeah, anyone who acquires the token and stakes it can become a justice.
Nice. Okay. Let's talk a bit about your roadmap. When do you expect to launch your platform and see the first poker players online?
Sure. So what we're doing right now, there's two things that so we've built an initial justice, but we need to fully build out the justice system, as well as we need to do this UPort integration. So for our registration, it's a registration and login mechanism. Those are the first two things up on our roadmap, and we plan on completing that before the end of Q1. As we enter the spring, we want to begin the process for obtaining a gaming license, as well as open it to beta testers on a test network so that we can get product feedback. Our plan is to do a big marketing campaign around the World Series of Poker, around our 3 poker pros over the summer to generate interest in our product and platform. And then launch our guaranteed tournament series and free roll tournaments in the fall and potentially early winter So late 2018 is when we expect to launch.
Nice. Okay, and is your crowd sale closed to date? I mean, when will it be?
So we expect our token launch to occur before the middle of February. We actually are delaying it slightly. Our company, ConsenSys, is putting together a broad cross-industry working group to formulate better standards for token sales to better protect people who want to buy tokens, as well as ensure that we are communicating with regulators and we don't down the road have any kind of regulatory fallback or pushback down the road, which I think any new upstart cannot have any kind of regulatory issues before they even get the platform launched. So where we want to be very secure. We expect to have that feedback from our this is a ConsenSys initiative, by the end of January, so that we can go into our token sale early February.
Nice. Okay, can you elaborate a little more about your crowd sale? Will you have a private sale about the company?
Yeah, so we're not doing any pre-sale. We're only doing a public sale. We thought that a lot of the special discounts that were going on in these pre-sales were hurting anyone who wanted to participate in a public sale. So we felt that that was the best move not to do that. So we're currently still funded by ConsenSys and will continue to do so until we get to our public sale. And then in terms of the sales structure, we're using a reverse Dutch auction. So the mechanism by which this works is you have a starting price for a token that decreases over time. So to sell sells out instantly, we sell a lower percentage of tokens. If it takes a longer period of time for us to hit our cap, we sell a greater percentage. So it's between 10% and 50% of the tokens. Any unsold tokens from the sale, we're locking up and allocating for marketing resources to acquire players. So those guaranteed tournaments and pre-rolls I mentioned, any unsold tokens goes to that budget so that we can give us a better likelihood of success for attracting players down the road.
Nice. I like it, the way that you don't have big bonuses for private sales. It's nice. Okay, maybe you can tell our audience how they can get involved in your projects to date.
Yeah, for sure. So we just opened up our Telegram channel. So I'll send you the link after this interview, as well as we're keeping registration for our sale open. We're doing a full KYC and AML screen on all participants because we are a gambling app and we want to be very compliant. I will send you the link as well. It's virtue.poker/launch. We'll make an announcement about the final sale date in the next coming weeks. We also, I think if you want to stay up to date in terms of our product and project updates, you should sign up for our email list. That's where we're going to be communicating, as well as our Twitter, to anyone who's interested in Virtue Poker.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. It was fascinating, and I wish you great success in our upcoming platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.